Welcome to the Chief Aim podcast. This is your weekly dose of real experiences, insights, strategies, and action steps for entrepreneurs who want to build and are building something incredible. Welcome to the Chief Aim podcast. I am Jason Graystone.
And I'm Sebastian Bates.
And we're back again with another episode of business stuff. And this episode is a little bit controversial, I guess, because most of the people that listen to this are on a journey of either trying to make their business better or they're thinking about starting a business. But myself and Seb, we've done some coaching and we work with entrepreneurs and we're surrounded by entrepreneurs and we're in that space. We see a lot of kind of commonalities in approaches and mindset and opinions and beliefs and actions and strategy and all that kind of stuff. So the other day I was ranting on social media about this kind of idea of pursuing and perseverance. And when I dug a little bit deeper, I thought this would be a great topic for the podcast, because ultimately this is, if you don't do these two things, you're going to fail. You're going to fail in business. And I guess the first one, pursue, what we mean by that is pursuing your dream, pursuing your goal, actually pursuing with the plan. And the reason people don't do that is for a number of reasons: other people's opinions, fear of being judged, imposter syndrome, which is a massive one, which we'll delve into in a moment. Why else don't they pursue, Seb?
Yeah, I think there's lots of different reasons, right? Opinions of others is probably quite a big one up there as well, isn't it? Right? Like we're always being coached, I think, by ourselves or by someone else, and there's always that lingering voice in the back of our head. But for me, the one that really stands out is imposter syndrome. It's like this hidden kind of cloud that follows people throughout their life, right?
Yeah. For people who don't know what imposter syndrome is, it's ultimately where you just don't feel like you're good enough. You don't feel your thing will be good enough. You don't feel like you're in a position to do it. You don't feel you're quite ready. And usually that does still boil down to looking up to the opinion of someone judging you in some way. So imposter syndrome is a massive one. And let us know in the comments if you've ever experienced imposter syndrome, because I'm not saying that we haven't. I definitely have. And I'll just tell you a little story about when I was, I can't remember where I was doing a talk. I think it might have been the first time I spoke on stage at like the Investor Show or something like that in London. And I just thought, man, these people know more than me. and I had this feeling of like, should I just go home? Should I not go on stage? And what I realized is, actually, if I was talking to a group of kindergarten or kids or nursery kids, right, it wouldn't bother me. I'd just get out. I'd be very confident. I'd talk about it, and I know my stuff. But it's because you've got someone in the audience on a bit of a pedestal, and you're like, oh, that person, they're going to be looking at me thinking, oh, you messed up there, or that's not quite accurate, or picking to pieces what you're doing. And it's whether it's a talk on stage, or whether it's your product, or whether it's what you're building and your ideas and all this kind of stuff. It's all the same. It's like you're thinking that someone is going to crucify your idea or your next move, and that is where it's like, oh, perhaps I shouldn't do it. And you feel like a wall. You feel like this resistance. I know you see it all the time, Seb, as well.
Yeah, definitely. I think you said one of the questions you asked was, has anyone here experienced imposter syndrome? I really can't think of anyone who's ever started a business, ever created something, got something out there, or has a successful business who hasn't. Right, because the sheer fact that you experience success is like you've had to put yourself out there, right? And putting yourself out there comes at the risk of people not liking your stuff. And a lot of the time, I think this kind of feeling of imposter syndrome is one of the biggest reasons we don't pursue. But it's like, what is that voice? And I love what you said about there's someone in the audience on a pedestal. When people say to me, I haven't done this, or I haven't done that. A classic one is social media, right? Because social media is so important, and a lot of people aren't doing it because there's imposter syndrome. I don't want to be seen talking about the stuff that I really love, in case there's someone out there who, And what I say to people like that is, if they are deliberately not creating content and releasing content, and they've told me that, the first thing I say is, why? And then when they can't really come up with a reason, then it's clear to me that it's imposter syndrome, right? If you can't come up with a reason within the first 10 seconds, like a good reason, then it's imposter syndrome. And there's no good reason nowadays why you shouldn't have content out there. And so the imposter syndrome creeps in at that stage. So the next question I ask is, whose voice is it? And do you know what? It's really interesting because at first they're like, well, no, no one's voice. Then I'm like, there's someone's voice. There's someone's voice. Yeah. There's someone, right? And people hate this conversation because you kind of have to dig in. And it's like, they don't want to talk about it. It could be their dad's voice. It could be a wise old friend's voice who's been there and done it before in their eyes, or it could be a business mentor's voice, or it could be someone who has always kind of judged them a little bit. It could even be a previous mentor who's got nothing to do with this, or it could be an old friend who, they think would criticize what they're doing, who hasn't got a clue about your content or what it is you're trying to put together, right? But there's a voice. And if you can identify who that is, then you can start to bring down them off that pedestal, right? You can start to say, well, what do they know about what I'm doing? Why does their voice or opinion matter in this? One of the things I then say is, once they've established whose voice it is, I say, assume that person hates you. And whatever you do for the rest of your life, they will hate everything you do, whether it's good or bad, right? Yeah. And then it becomes a little bit interesting because it's a bit like, well, you might as well do it anyway, because they're going to hate you anyway. They're going to have a bad opinion of you anyway. And here's the funny thing. 50% of people you meet are probably going to feel the same way, right? So I think accepting that people don't like you is a bit of a superpower, because a lot of the time that's the thing that restricts us. And it's one of the things that fuels imposter syndrome in the first place. But one of the things that I would say to entrepreneurs with imposter syndrome is, if you're experiencing imposter syndrome, it's an indication. It's like an indicator, right? On your entrepreneur dashboard that goes off, ding, like an engine light. It goes off and it's basically saying to you, you're about to level up. You're in an uncomfortable position where you're about to, step out of your comfort zone and do something very different and very challenging. But you basically want to be driving with the engine light or close to the engine light on as much as you can when you're building your business if you want to grow fast, right? You want to be bringing that. You want to be pushing the foot down and really pushing that engine as much as you can. So we're just on the brink of that engine light going off all the time. And that's the way I kind of see it. Yeah. The other thing I say is, try and personify the voice that comes on in your head. So when that voice comes in and it's like, you can't do this, you can't do that, you're not ready for this, you don't know enough, people will question you, they're judging you. Try and be really, really good at understanding what that voice actually is, right? That is the voice of the engine light screaming at you as it turns on. Be really good at identifying that voice, then have a bit of fun with it. Give that voice a name. Say hello, my old friend, as it kind of pops into your head, and it's just like, I was kind of expecting you because I'm ready to grow, right? I'm ready for this next stage. So, things were going well, and I'm now doing something which is clearly outside of my comfort zone. So I'm expecting this voice to come in, right? And just have a little look at that voice and just kind of visualize yourself speaking to that as a person, and then having a bit of attitude with it and just doing it anyway. Almost like you're enjoying the fact that you love kind of saying to this voice when it kind of distracts you or forces you off your focus, saying to it, I'm going to do that anyway. I'm just going to do this anyway, and putting two fingers up and cracking on. And I think that's having that kind of attitude and personifying something like that, which derails so many plans we've got, is a really powerful way to kind of deal with it. And I think it works for a lot of people doing that.
Definitely. Absolutely. 100% agree. And what you said about, we all get it. I don't think we all get it at every stage. So if you do, like, first of all, pursuing your goal, pursuing your dream, or pursuing your business or whatever, first of all, it'd be a tragedy for you not to pursue it because other people are, because you're worried about what other people are thinking. Imagine you're 90 years old and you're about to, pop your clogs, and it's like you're looking back going, I just wish I did that. I didn't do it because I was worried about Janice pulling me up on a technicality of something, right? That's crazy, right? Resentment is a big fear of mine. I just don't want any resentment in my life. So there's that, but it's not along all stages. So if you do pursue, you find that you're like, you're doing the stuff that makes you feel like you're making progress. It's only when it comes to the crunch, like whether you're about to launch something, or whether you've got to stand up on stage, or you've got to actually deliver something, that's when it creeps in. It's like, oh, as I start to launch this thing, is it going to do well? Is anyone going to buy it? Is anyone going to buy into it? And everyone gets that. Like that never really goes away, because no matter what you're launching, like you could have all the following in the world, and you could have built it to demand, and you could have, like, there's a demand, and you built the thing, and you're about to sell it, and on sell day, when you're about to drop it, you're still thinking, I have no idea how this is going to do. You really don't know. So if you're never going to know, then you might as well just do it anyway, right? If it doesn't get really any better, then you just got to do it. You got to roll with it and take the punches. But what I'll say is about the stage thing is, what I ended up doing is realizing that I wasn't actually talking to a room full of 200 people. I was talking to 201 persons who are all seeing me as their unique view. Like, they're all sitting there with their own different perceptions of me. Some may have thought I was an arsehole. Some might have thought I was they might be looking up to me a little bit. But ultimately it's one person. One person is going to go away, and whatever they think doesn't really affect my next action, or what I'm capable of, or what I know. But I will say this: if you've got like a crippling, like it's literally crippling fear of putting yourself out there, then that may be a mechanism, like Seb says, like a warning light to say you just need to skill up a little bit. Maybe there is something you don't know. Maybe there's something you just need to go and reinforce or back up by another great expert in that field, or science, or do some other research just to back up your thoughts, and so that you get that confidence, and you're like, right, what I thought is actually also been thought by this person, and is actually backed up by this person. And the more you do that, the more you can kind of relieve that imposter syndrome, and understand that you are good at, you are good and you are passionate about what you're doing.
One of the things I would say there is it's basically about feedback from the market, as with anything, right? You come up with a product, you stick it out there, do people want it or not? What's the response you get from it? So for you to be in a position where you're about to put yourself out there, or you have put yourself out there, you've probably had several meaningful conversations with people who may enjoy what you've got to say in the past anyway, right? So for me, it all comes down to authenticity. Rather than standing up and saying, I'm the world's best this, and I'm the world's best that, and you should listen to me and not listen to anyone else. For me, that's the wrong way of doing it. And this is a classic like startup thing. I mentor a lot of startups, a few hundred startups a year. And it's like, I can just sense the kind of overconfidence bravado, rather than real confidence is like, I've worked with lots of people. I've had lots of mini conversations with that, and I've studied this for a long time. I know there's people out there who have studied this for longer. Maybe they've got more qualifications than this, but here's been my human experience of going through this, and my unique experience and the studies I've done. And I know that it's helped people, and this is how I'm going to share that, right? Rather than standing up and saying, I'm the world's best at this, and I know everything because I'm a startup, and what I find is that when you're authentic, you're not pretending to be something you're not. And then you suddenly, you have this sense of dropping any concern you've got, or what everyone thinks about you, because you've been very transparent, right? You're not saying anything that you're not, because that's something that people will pick you up on. So when someone turns around and says, actually, that's wrong, you can say, well, maybe it is, but from my experience, and which has clearly worked for these people, then this is what I'm putting forward. And so that's what I would say as well, it's just being as authentic as possible. And then going back to that whole, going back to the assumption that not everyone's going to like you anyway, right? Like when you go on stage, and like Jason says, you're speaking to 100 individuals, no one really cares who you are, and they're just thinking about themselves most of the time, right? They're judging you based on their own lens of values, and they're comparing you to them constantly. Like every single thing you do, they're just comparing you to them all the time. And so, I think one of the best ways of dealing with that is ultimately saying to yourself, I'm not here to please everybody, right? But what I am here to do is, I'm not even here to please myself. I'm actually in here to serve those 20 to 30 people out of the 100 who are really leaning in, who I know I can help, right? And what I do in my head is I imagine, I don't look around the room and say, they hate me, and so on. I just imagine everyone's in that 20% who I really want to help. And I look at it with empathy and compassion. And I'm like, these are the people that I want to serve. Whenever I do talks for business mentoring, whatever it is, or even working with parents through bullying workshops, I imagine in my mind one type of person who could really benefit from this. And then I imagine that everyone's like that. And then I think you come across in such an authentic, caring, compassionate way that it would just be weird for someone to hate you. And if someone really hates you, then it's just down to them anyway, right? So it should, those little nuggets from both of us there should hopefully dissolve a lot of the imposter syndrome, which derails a lot of the pursue aspect of this, right?
Definitely. And just like usually just assume that most people won't like listen, even out of the 20%, even out of the 30 out of 100, a few of them will just be like, nah. A few of them might be like, that's really valuable, and then like a few of them will really love you, and that's it, but ultimately you just talk from the heart, and you just overcome it, and that kind of leads onto the next point, which is perseverance. So the next problem is the people that do go and pursue, and they go, yeah, I've just started the business, and I'm doing this, I'm doing that, and I'm doing social media. Social media is like the prime example for this. They just go, well, I'm not seeing any results, or this is much harder than I thought it would be, or well, nothing's happening. I'm not magically, miraculously having like hundreds of thousands of pounds come into my bank account. And I get that, like, social media and the way that the world is with instant gratification, everything now, we have reason to believe that everything should be quicker and easier, but it just isn't. Like, it really isn't. So if you are going to pursue something, the tragedy is someone pursues it and goes after it and then proves themselves right by failing, by not giving it enough time. That's an absolute tragedy. They think they're going to get results in, they overestimate what's achievable in a short space of time, and then they underestimate what's achievable in a 3 to 5 year period, which is where really all the magic takes place. So we see this all the time, right? It's like, well, I'm not seeing.
I think that the trick to this is a lot of people don't look at entrepreneurship like a career, right? They look at it as a means to make money, and for me, it's almost 15 years now. Pretty much since I was like 19, I've been an entrepreneur, right? And for me, it was only when I was late 20s, early 30s that I really started, actually more early 30s, and I really started to see this as a career in entrepreneurship. And I think you get to that stage where you exist for a reason beyond making money. So it's typically after you're financially free, where your mind is not like plagued by, I need security. You kind of evolve past that level in your career. And also you realize that what you really love about doing what you're doing is solving problems, right? And as an entrepreneur, it's like this is an infinite game of just constantly solving problems out there in the world, right? And I think that those two things for me have taken my mind from not being able to think longer than a year to being able to think, 50, 60, 70 years. And I was thinking the other day, I've only been in business 15 years, right? And I look at those 15 years and I'm like, well, none of this was linear at all. The first 10 years were graft, trenches, in the trenches, graft, tough work, very, very slow progress. 10 years like that. And arguably I used the business to fund my travel and experiences in my early 20s a lot, right? But after I kind of stopped traveling as much and I really doubled down on the business, 2017 onwards, my focus was then on growing the business. And I think then it started to pick up more. But it's only in the last 4 to 5 years that it really picked up. And I mean, the doubling speed was every single year, so instead of the doubling speed being every 5 years, the first 10 years, it was like every single year we doubled everything, team, revenue, profit, whatever it was, locations. And so if you look at that curve, it's really, slow and then bang, fast trajectory.
Yeah.
And so I look at myself and I'm like, well, I'm 15 years into this. 33 now. I'm probably, unless something goes wrong, and I've kind of stopped doing the stuff that, base jumping and this sort of stuff, which is likely to make it go wrong. providing my mind is still intact by the time I'm 85, I've probably got another 50 years of doing this, right?
Yeah.
So 50 years in entrepreneurship, based on the fact that I've already learned so many things and so many ways of leveraging time, money, and knowledge, right? At this stage, it's like, well, the next 50 years, even if they're not as fast as we're going now, I've got all that knowledge and funding and strategy and network that I can bring to the table now compared to the first 15 years, which makes it really exciting. And it's like, well, actually now you kind of level up. You know, there's no career progression in entrepreneurship that's tangible. You know, you get a government job and you get this promotion, that promotion, this promotion, that promotion every couple of years. With entrepreneurship, though, you don't have that. But if there was, you know, it would be really visible. It'd be like, cool, this is the time that things are now going to change. And so for me, it's super inspiring to think 50 years in the future now. But people don't do that with entrepreneurship, right? And this is the persevere issue. People look at it short term. This is not a short term game. Fall in love with the game of entrepreneurship, exist for a reason beyond making money, and love solving other people's problems. And you will not worry about the next 1 to 2 years. You'll have a sense of calm that comes over you, and you'll just enjoy the process and enjoy the infinite game of entrepreneurship, I think.
That's it. That's it. Do it. And you say that you're doing it now. You'll be doing it when you're 85. You're pursuing something that you actually enjoy as well, which is really important. I think there's a lot of people going out there trying to make a quick buck or jump on a trend, when really you need to, like, your business should just be an extension of who you are, and get involved with things that light you up and you want to solve the problems in. If you're trying to do the drop shipping thing or the flipping Amazon FBA or whatever you're doing, you know, are you waking up energized to do that? Because if you're not, then you're already setting yourself up for failure, because you're really not likely to persevere doing that when you hit the challenges and the obstacles and all the rest of it. So the perseverance side is usually it's avoidable just by focusing on something, like Seb says, something you enjoy, something that's beyond making money, and then something you can see yourself doing. You've got to do something in your life, right? So how about do something you enjoy and find out a way to monetize it to pay for your lifestyle, and then grow it? Like, that's basically it. And if you think that kind of long term, you're going to persevere. It's going to be something that you naturally want to do. And you will endure all of the challenges and the struggles that we all get thrown at us, no matter what you're in. Just having a fantasy that there's some kind of niche or industry where people haven't got challenges is ridiculous. Like, that doesn't exist. And there's no person in the world who doesn't have challenges. No matter how much money or freedom or whatever they've got their own challenges. It never goes. We've all got them. So
do you know what? I was listening to there's a video somewhere yesterday, and it was a guy saying that the guy who owns the stunning beach house, you know, which overlooks the sea, and it's just like the most incredible dream home,
spends the least time in the beach house.
Never gets to enjoy it, right? Because he's there, and you imagine he's sitting at the beach house, he's got his laptop open, he's like, right, if only I could have the private jet to fly me to the beach house, then I'll be happy, right? And if I can just get, if I can just do this, and if I can, maybe I can get an extension of the beach house, but this is, in order to get the beach house in the first place, he has to be the sort of guy, right, who's that driven, who's willing to constantly push it when he thinks that he's got it all. No. He's in his mind, he's already on the next thing. And I think that we fall into that trap as entrepreneurs a lot. You know, we don't enjoy the view on the way up. And it's funny as well, because a lot of entrepreneurs who get in this game for the wrong reasons, I would say, right? You know, they want to make money quickly, and they start to cheat and lie and play out of bounds, I call it, right? It's like there's enough room on the court to play the game properly without having to be immoral or unethical, even illegal, which you see a lot of people doing. And
definitely.
And I think it's amazing to me that if you were going to take someone like that who's just started out, and you were going to put them in a community of other people who've already been there and done it, right? So their closest 5 friends are now people who have got the beach house, they've got the £1 million in the bank, they're financially free, they've got the car, and they actually just saw what that life was like. And, you know, their mind would be blown, because it would be like, okay, cool, there's so much more out there. And what I wanted really isn't, you know, what I thought I wanted. It's just the start of what I could get. So your perspective then changes because of your environment. But C, I think, B, I think it would just change the way in which they go about their kind of day to day.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It would be, I think often when you've got a much longer term perspective, you enjoy what you're doing more, but also you actually get there faster, because it's not like you're seeing this journey like a start and end, and that's the end. You're already thinking about this bit, and you're moving towards that. But you just got to enjoy that whole journey and that whole process. So it's for me, the big lesson there is have something big to strive for, but make sure that you really, take note of those little moments on the way, which you always say to yourself, these are going to be, that was the big goal, and just really absorbing yourself in that moment. Sharing the journey is another one as well. Whether if you've got an amazing partner, like I was running a business on my own for a long time, and just having a wife and doing it with my wife is incredible, because you're able to say, do you remember when we talked about that, and now we're doing this, and remember when we almost 10 years ago, right, we were doing this together, and now we've just had that conversation with that person. We're just launching in this country, we're now in 4 continents. It's like the conversations that you have with people who join you on that journey, even team members, right? Sharing that entrepreneur journey is massive. So I think that the other key there is, in order to persevere, look at your environment, look at who influences it, look at who you want to take with you in terms of your friends or your family or your colleagues or your team, right? Because ultimately they will help you enrich that experience. They'll make that experience more enjoyable for you, and help you enjoy the view on the way up, because you'll have more of a reference point because they exist.
Yeah. And as I mentioned before on the podcast, it's like anyone who isn't in support of that journey, or anything that you're doing that isn't supporting your perseverance, is dead weight. And as I said, when you send a rocket into space, you need 4.5 liters of fuel for 1 kilogram of weight. So the more dead weight you've got, the more it's exponential amount of fuel that you need. So the more people around you that are dead weight is going to cost you. It's going to make it very, very difficult for you to actually get off the ground. So pursue your goals, pursue your dreams, go after what you want, and then persevere. And if you're doing something that you enjoy and you're going after it, you're going to get it. It's as simple as that. There's no two things about it. But if you don't do one of those things, you're not going to succeed. No one succeeds if they don't actually go after it, and no one succeeds if they don't actually persevere with it. So I thought it was an interesting topic to discuss, and I think it's really common amongst people. They either struggle with one or two of those things. So if you're listening to this, let us know what you're struggling with in the comments, whether it's something, an idea you've got, or why you're not pursuing it, or maybe something you're struggling with in terms of perseverance. Let us know in the comments and we can talk about it. And I've enjoyed this episode, as always. Let us know if you've got any other topics you want to talk about in the comments. And until next time, have a great rest of your day, and we'll catch you on the next one. Take care. If you're enjoying these podcasts, be sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode. And if you're really getting value from these, we'd really love it if you could let us know on our review page. We'll see you next week.